Good evening and welcome to the Members Artist Talk, sharing their inspiration on the theme, It's a Shoe-In. My name's Linda Leslie and I'm a member of Sask Terra. And here's a little bit of talk about Sask Terra. We are an organization representing ceramic artists throughout Saskatchewan with a few members from Manitoba and Alberta. We provide education opportunities and exposure to emerging and established artists by holding workshops, touring exhibition, and other events throughout the year. Our website officially states, Sask Terra Group, Inc. is a non-profit corporation which supports, develops, and promotes work in ceramics by Saskatchewan artists. Founded in 1997, we have approximately 50 members. And we wanted to invite you to check out the exhibition gallery, and it'll show you Sask Terra member shows, present and past. Our exhibition has traveled throughout Saskatchewan and even Ontario and the USA. Okay, if we could watch the slides now, which are going to talk a little bit about Sask Terra. So this is a picture here of one of our Cone 6 glaze workshop testing glazes. So these little test tiles were done at a Cone 6 reduction firing. We tried all sorts of glazes and with the idea of promoting Cone 6 reduction rather than Cone 9. Which is hotter. There's an advantage to this in that you're kind of savoring the environment by not using as much fuel and emissions. Here we are with the pieces that are just glazed, and this is the same workshop, so we're getting ready to load the kiln. Oh, and here's Paula making cone packs. That's the measuring device that we use in the gas kiln to tell temperatures. Here we are loading the kiln. This is how they came out. So here's some examples of the great glazes that we're getting with the Cone 6 firings. Okay, then this year, Sue Robertson introduced us to another method of putting a surface on the clay. We have we had an ash and flash, and that's what it's sort of become known to us. And it is taking Christmas wrap and wrapping it around your bisque-fired piece, and then burning the Christmas wrap with a propane torch. So here are examples of how the pieces came out from that firing. Here we are doing it. We're burning away. There's some of the paper burning off. Finished product. These pieces, of course, are decorative because they won't hold water. Because this is new to us, we're really excited about all the surface, the colors that we can get. They need to be waxed or finished in some manner to retain the surface. This is the spring thing with our annual meeting, and we were at Monica DeCampo's house in Moose Jaw, and again we're doing some more of these flash. Okay, and here we are with Heather Smith. She was the juror for the show here for It's a Shoe-In, and here's just some pictures from that day. This is another show that we had called The Surface Factor, and Lee Brady was our juror that time. So here's Lee talking to us about his choices for that show. And here's our potluck. We always have potluck, and we feed ourselves really well. Now, this is the shows from It's a Shoe-In that are around the room. So what we're going to do is we're just going to show them and have the artist talk about the inspiration for that show. If you want to come up, you can, or just stand up. There's not very many of us here. So the inspiration for your idea for the It's a Shoe-In.
Okay, it's not a real deep secret origin for where my piece came from. The theme occupied my mind a lot, and it kept popping in and out at the oddest times. I was driving home from the studio the one night and thinking of shoe in something, and what came to me was a shoe in the butt or a kick in the derriere. So the next day at the studio, I grabbed up some clay and I made a bum with a boot. And one of the classmates looked at it and said, "That's really rude." And so I got to thinking again of how I could get the same thing across, but maybe in a more palatable manner. And so what comes to mind for me was pears, because often bum shapes are pear shapes. And so that's in fact where I was making it more digestible, so to speak, with the pears. And when you come up to it, you will see pears, and hopefully someone might wonder, well, what has pears got to do with a shoe in? But when you actually look around the back, I did shape the back part like a bum with the boot. So that's where it came from, and that's what ended up.
Is that yours, Teresa? Okay, well, come on up and tell us about it.
I was just thinking of what I knew of Saskatchewan, and I was thinking of how you drive along and see the shoes on the top of a fence. And because of the size restriction, that's how I worked in the barbed wire in the fence.
Good inspiration. Yeah, thank you.
This one, I was kind of thinking of the high-heeled shoes and how we wreck our feet, actually, working in them, and underneath how we're all the same.
Okay, and this is Alan Phillips' Monk series. Do you want to go back one, Lorraine? Just go back there, because I know what he said. They, you know, it's a shoe into the to the goose coop. And one of them was the mean monk who was actually booting the goose into the goose coop. Okay, so now this belongs to Shelley. Is Shelley here? No. Well, it's another interpretation, and Sue isn't here either. Who is this, Cease?
Mary Ferguson.
Okay, Mary Ferguson. This is Linda Leslie's. It's simply a pump. The idea is the heel is actually a hand pump from a farm with a... Oh. So it's a simple black pump. That was kind of fun. And the other one, I stayed with this same idea, sort of. And this one is called Did I Say That? Meaning that quite often I or other people put their foot in their mouth. And I must tell you, I will never try to think a denturist isn't a miraculous person, because those dentures were hard to make. Okay, and this one is Helen. Helen. And she no longer lives in our province, but she sends us lovely interpretations for our themes. She exhibits with us. Okay, Elaine Harrison. She isn't here either. And this one is Elaine as well. Heather McDonald, and it's called Foot in the Mouth. Okay, this is Louise Cormier. I wish she were here to tell us her inspiration. It's delightful. And Monique.
It's taken a lot of thinking. I did a lot of research on how the shoe-in phrase came to be, about horse racing and all of those things, that you're going to be a for sure winner. And I believe in this time in history, that if you have lots of money, you don't have to really work that hard to get anywhere you want to be. You can pave the way with basically gold and dance all the way there. There's many instances of that. And at the time, the Olympics were on, so I was researching this whole thing and hearing about the gajillions of dollars it takes somebody to become something. And my son's a professional snowboarder, so I kind of know firsthand. So that was happening at the time, and then an article came on CBC about how much each medal actually cost Canada. And then the amount of training that goes into those medals for all that, and they had this little chart. And so I went to bed after researching all this successes, the whole thing with the shoe-in, and then the whole money thing with the Olympics. Because if you don't have money in a sport, you're not going to make it. I mean, my son has gone as far as he can because I'm a teacher and I'm an artist. And there's a certain point where they need more than what they can get from somewhere else. And then I started thinking about the business world. And it's exactly the same, because if you can go to university to get the right degree, if you have that kickstart, you can be successful. Then I started to think about the people on the streets of Vancouver. I happened to be visiting my son in Vancouver, saw the people on the streets in Vancouver. It just takes that kickstart, that money, to have that success. And sometimes you just can't get that little bit to make it go. And I see it in school too with some of the kids that I work with in different programming with the arts, that if they don't have that money to buy that meal, then they get to school and they can't be successful. And if they don't have the money to get into any kind of sport, then they're just hanging out at night and getting into trouble. It's all this vicious cycle that starts with money. So success is kind of for sale. So I thought, okay, how can I make this into art? Then I happened chance got this, I had this box in my classroom of those ribbons from the exhibition from my students from long ago, and kids will move away, right? And I hang on to their art in case they're going to come back, and I have their little ribbon on it and the whole thing. And I was moving classrooms, and the box actually basically fell on my head, okay? So the box fell, the ribbons were there, I went, oh, I've got it! And I was sort of like, I need to go home right now! Okay, so I get home, and I'm pretty much rolling. The minute I come in the door, I'm making the little rosette ribbon, do my thing, I have my whole plan. And then all of a sudden, oh, I need to make a store shelf. I need to display these like you can actually buy them. So then I was searching for Ziploc bag, are the little bags the right size, making the labels, making them bilingual, making the QR code work, all of these things. So if you go on and you do the QR code, it goes to a web page where there's articles about buying success. So if you do it, you actually go there. And I have put a whole bunch of articles, and people now send them to me. And I add them on the bottom, like people email me, oh, I saw your thing, and I add it to the bottom. So and success is kind of for sale in this world. Shortly after I finished this, kid you not, my husband coaches hockey and volunteers for Hockey Saskatchewan. So we're at Sask Place for the little Timbits tournament, where they take these hockey players, I kid you not, this big, that should just be at home playing with Lego or making some art, okay? They're on the ice, can barely move. Everybody there got a first place ribbon just for coming. Okay, so I'm standing there with my husband, and there's a whole table full of medals for each kid. And I went, success is for sale right here. And Tim Hortons has sponsored it. You know, so it was just so in my face, and it's so in my face all the time now. So I really wanted it to look like a store shelf. Habitat for Humanity, who I help out, got me the little zippy things to put them on. And there you go. There's also a graduation cap, because my daughter was graduating at the very same time I was finishing this, and so I made a clay actual, you know, and it fits her head and everything, but it's too big for that thing. So it's at home on display. It has a real ribbon coming out that hangs off and the whole deal. It's really great. So I'd love to have a whole wall that you could, like if I could do this real, if I could have like all the money in the world, success is for sale. Okay, so if I could do this, there would be an entire wall, and people would come in, and there would be all kinds of things for sale. Like you could buy a little house, and you could buy a wedding, and you could buy all of the things people want all the time. You know, it would all be there. A little, your own Tim Hortons restaurant, you could buy one. Okay, so, and you could be out and get in a little Ziploc bag, wouldn't that be great? Okay, so anyway, that was the inspiration. It all came from research, like most of my work. I don't know. So it just doesn't fit with anybody else's. I came into the opening, I was like, oh my.
Oh,
I'm so weird.
It does fit.
Oh, well.
Thank you.
It didn't look like a shoe.
Thank you, Monique. Okay, and these are Paula Cooley's, and they're up here at the front. They are road maps on shoes, And there's a compass on the top. I think she even has Saskatoon and how to get here on the shoes, so they're quite delightful to look at. Okay.
That's Paula's.
This is Paula's as well.
Her sharp shoes.
These are sharp shoes, again, as someone said, talking about how we ruin our feet wearing these sharp shoes. There's pieces of glass in them. Okay, this is you, Lorraine.
I wanted to do a flipper, and it didn't quite fit the show, so I made it a flipper slipper. And I had some shells and decorated it with shells, and the frustrating part was that I wanted to do it this big, and I couldn't. Anyway, the pearls are all handmade and painted with pearlized paint. And it was airbrushed and slab-built paper clay. This one is connected to melting shoes. When we were younger, going to dance halls late at night, and the guys out on the stoop drinking, and the girls lined up inside with their sandwiches, and then we'd be dancing our feet off. By the time we were finished, our shoes were getting chucked in the corners, and our feet felt like they were melting. So this is a takeoff on a hot night at the dance hall. This one, I've done cardboard pieces before, and I enjoy doing them. And I had some cardboard colored clay, which I had painstakingly researched, and then later found out there were several shades of cardboard. So anyway, I decided to do a shoe for Cinderella's ugly sister. And she tried to trap the prince by losing it at the dance, but instead he found the glass slipper.
This is Teresa Gagne's work. It's a labyrinth, finger labyrinth. This is also Teresa's.
This one was done with wire mesh dipped in paper clay and then fired.
Oh, this is Judy Tryon's. Okay. And Judy isn't here. Okay, this is also Judy's, and it is a gray mule. So she even has a little tail with real hairs in it. And this is her other piece, the little red slippers, which someone said they were in the Star Phoenix this week. That's an example. Okay. So that's the pieces that are in the show. So I guess if you want to wander around and have a look at other people's inspirations, now would be the time to do that. I want to thank you, artists, for coming.